Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Today's review is 17th Century Minimalist and 17th Century Minimalist Mini Adventure Folder by Games Omnivorous. Okay, first a bit of history. Released in February 2020, 17th Century Minimalist is a 40-page self-contained system that describes itself as a fast-paced and highly deadly game with a pinch of black humour that puts players in 17th century Europe. It claims that the rules are simplified and compressed to their essence, assumes a historical low fantasy setting, has firearms and flintlocks, no magic, fast and scary combat, and perhaps most interestingly, characters don't gain any extra hit points as they advance in level. It also has mechanics for experience, luck and reputation that offer a narrative style of play. It is available as a PDF and in print from Games Omnivorous' website. This first printing is limited to 500 copies. To the cover. There's really not much to speak of here, though you could argue that it is at least sticking to the minimalist aesthetic, and it does have the look and feel of the original white box D&D material, which is a plus point. Right, to the inside. First, we have a note from the author where he talks about his reasoning behind the design contained within, and his interesting take on the lack of magic in the setting, citing the talent of illusionists and plague doctors as being interpretable as miraculous. They also talk about their influences, games such as The Black Hack, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, Troika and the like. It then talks about what sets this game apart from others. There are a few design decisions which the author explains, pointing out that it draws extensively from other games in the community. It mentions that all rules are compressed to their essence, assumes a historical low fantasy setting, and has firearms with flintlocks, something absent in many other games. And the thought behind combat being fast and deadly is due to hit points being a fixed number, and that it rewards players who do what their class is best at. It recommends using this book in a number of ways, from creating your own historical campaigns and adventures, running modules as they appear in the mini adventure folder, and also running pre-existing OSR modules, which it stresses are minimum effort to convert. We then get to the basic rules. It covers the interaction between the GM and the players in one paragraph, and then moves on to the rules proper, which don't appear to be in any order. Time is only strictly measured when in combat, and those actions are limited to one movement and one action. Actions are tested on a d20 by rolling underneath the ability score associated with them. Simple actions automatically succeed. It uses the advantage and disadvantage system with the addition that there is a double advantage or disadvantage mechanic. There are 5 ability scores in play: Charisma, Dex, Strength, Int and Luck. Each of these is associated with the 5 classes. It covers searching for secret stuff, with it being either Dex or Luck that are rolled by the GM, and saving throws are based on what is being resisted as a roll under the particular stat. Combat is next. For initiative, each player puts a die in a bag and there is one for the enemies and one neutral die. The GM takes them out of the bag at random, one at a time, and whoever the die belongs to has their turn. When the neutral die is drawn, the round ends and all dice are returned to the bag for a new turn. To hit, the player rolls under their strength or dex depending on their method of attack. Fumbles are a natural 20 and they either hit an ally or themselves, dropping the weapon if this isn't plausible. Critical hit is a natural 1 and adds d4 damage, and armour can't be used to prevent the damage. If someone is attacked but it misses, they can fight back with either a melee weapon or a pistol with a disadvantage. Armour has a value and grants a number of d6 equal to its value. When someone's hit, they can use one of the dice to ignore damage taken. That die is set aside and can't be used again until the armour is repaired. When the time is right, they can roll a dice and any number rolled above the armour value means it's repaired. Those that fail can only be repaired by an artisan. If all dice roll broken, then the armour is considered useless. Anyone wearing armour that is not part of its class has the armour value as a penalty to all ability tests. There are 3 types of weapon damage: small weapons to do d4, medium d6 and big do d8, but are rolled at disadvantage. Anyone that reaches 0 hit points is taken out of combat and afterwards they roll d6 and refer to this table, with survivors coming back with 1 hit point. It has 2 optional rules, that of the combat trigger where the potential combat situation is role played out and the person who initiates it gets a free round before we go into actual initiative, and pretty much the easiest grapple rules I've ever encountered. It then moves on to a couple of pages of firearms where it details reloading and misfiring, with optional rules for damp situations. It covers firearm damage based on distance and talks about the different firing mechanisms and how they affect reloading, misfiring and dampness. Explosives are similarly covered by a small section. After that, it moves on to some of the more exotic firearms, such as the duck feet pistol and the quite bizarre flintlock cutlery, along with the rules for them, and then it shifts to character creation. The blurb on the back of the book claims that you can roll a new character in 5 minutes. You roll 3d4 for each ability, and then reroll any 5s or less using d4 plus 12. It then says that if they have no ability above 10 to start again. You then choose one of the 5 classes: Cutthroat, Illusionist, Plague Doctor, Soldier, or Swashbuckler. You write down your maximum hit points, note down starting equipment, then read your special abilities associated with your class. Characters can use luck during play by burning it permanently to make a reroll of anything except a fumble. At the end of each adventure, they regain D3 back. Healing is a simple case of long and short rests. Short heals 1 hit point back, long heals all. The system also uses the usage die mechanic for ammunition, rations, and other consumables. PCs know their native tongue and those of nearby kingdoms. It gives rules on starvation, hunting and foraging, and encumbrance, and then shift focus to campaigning. PCs go up a level for every 10 XP they gain. XP is gained for surviving adventures and doing deeds that change their reputation, but they also gain extra points for doing in-character feats indicative of their class. For example, the Plague Doctor gets XP for curing diseases, and the Soldier gains them for killing strong enemies. You get the idea. When a PC goes up in level, the player can try to raise one ability score of their choice by rolling d20. If they beat their current value, it goes up by 1. Reputation is a key feature of 17th Century Minimalist. It is measured as a value of 1 to 12, with PCs starting with a value of 6. It is added or subtracted to by performing virtuous or vicious stuff, respectively. Examples are listed here. The GM awards it as they see fit. When it reaches 12, they are considered famous and can no longer remain anonymous. When it drops to 1, they are considered infamous and are constantly held accountable and framed for wrongdoings. Players get a number of famous or infamous tokens to spend in-game. Spending a famous token will, for example, allow you to gain free food and lodgings in a town or receive an exotic gift. Infamous tokens will allow you to reach out into the criminal underworld for information or instill fear in adversaries, preventing them from attacking. It then gives us a section on commerce. The game only uses silver pieces, and it has some information on trading, how to price the different types of equipment, acquiring pets and training them to assist you. Things like dogs will help you when hunting and foraging, and a wolf will help you in combat, though a spider giving you D8 of web per week is open to interpretation. It has rules on retainers and what they provide, and then shifts to alcohol and drugs. We then have tables for generating beverage names and the effects of getting wasted, as well as drug sample and what a success using it and a failure using it generates. There are rules for disease and poison, and this includes the effects that they have, and we have this strange double-page spread that has a quote from Don Quixote. After this, we move on to the classes themselves. Each class has their respective character sheet and a list of their abilities. The Cutthroat have abilities that give them extra luck tokens and can avoid death by various methods in an uncanny fashion. After that is the Illusionist. They can perform tricks to entertain crowds and have the ability to have an extra die in the initiative bag. As they go up in level, they gain new powers from their bag of tricks, as detailed here. This is followed by the Plague Doctor, who are immune to disease and are feared and can perform treatments as listed here. This ranges from detecting disease to raising the dead. After this is the Soldier. They do not have a disadvantage when using large weapons, scored a critical hit on a 1 to 4, and have advantage on strength tests. Finally, we have the Swashbuckler. They regain D3 luck after a long rest, can perform swashbuckling deeds such as shooting a firearm with double advantage or making an extra attack with a sword in their turn. They also have the dueling power. After this, we have the tip corner where it talks about the design decisions such as fixed hit points and the like, and how to adjust it based on the style of the game you're running, followed by some conversion rules for OSR. In addition here, we have the mini adventure folder. This contains 5 very different mini adventures in this cardboard folder. They fold out and give pretty much all you need to run them. I'm not going to spoil any of them here, but they are very in keeping with the aesthetic and thinking behind the whole experience. 17th Century Minimalist has rules that are a mashup of many of the most innovative features of other recent rule sets like Troika and the Black Hack that all seem to work as a whole. However, while this seems on the face of it to be a clever design decision, it does at least for me make the game a little bit flat and unoriginal. Yes, it is definitely minimalist and really simple to learn, but in condensing the rules down to their very essence, other things have been left to slide. For example, there are no rules at all for charging into combat, yet there are 2 full pages devoted to poison and alcohol, which feels like a bit of a misstep. There are a number of things that also go against it. Firstly, the art. It's rubbish. I'm not going to beat about the bush here, it looks like it was drawn by a 5-year-old with a Sharpie, and although I think it's meant to have a cool, scratchy aesthetic similar to that of Scrap Princesses, it falls way short of the mark and just looked bad. Secondly is the price. Though the production values are good, the rules and mini-campaign folder are €35, 40 if you buy them separately at different times. At half the price it would be good value, but when you consider that you could buy a copy of Flashing Blades, for example, for less than this and get a whole lot more, including lots of details on the setting, the value seems to diminish. The PDF seems more realistic in the value stakes, but then that means that you're missing out what is actually a nice game book made of good quality paper. Also, there is no starting scenario included to show off the game. It's my belief that in order to truly make this minimal, the price needs to reflect it, which would require some editorial decisions. I think the book could be reduced by a third and still be perfectly functional. For example, the space and ink used to put in a Don Quixote quote seems like a massive waste and is counterintuitive to the idea of minimalism. While nice and simple, 17th Century Minimalist falls short of what they've tried to accomplish by giving too much focus on presenting a lean rule set that has gaps in it and having everything else feel bloated. I give it a 6 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, please make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Also, if you're interested in buying this product, I'll put some links below. Lastly, if you like what I produce here, then maybe think about supporting me on Patreon. Bud out.